He ordered the execution of the man who tried to kill Hitler, then faced the firing squad himself. July 5, inside Berlin's Bendlerblock, General Friedrich Fromm stands before his chief of staff, Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg. The coup has failed. Hitler lives. By dawn, 4 officers will lie dead in the courtyard. Months later, Fromm will join them. Friedrich Wilhelm Waldemar Fromm was born on October 5 in Charlottenburg, a district of Berlin within the German Empire. The son of a civil servant, he entered the Prussian army as a cadet in Fay. The rigid traditions of Imperial Germany shaped his entire worldview: discipline, hierarchy, obedience to authority. When the First World War erupted in August, Fromm served as an artillery officer on the Western Front. He was twice wounded, decorated for bravery, and earned recognition as a competent, reliable officer. These were qualities that would carry him far in the years ahead. After Germany's defeat in Fay, the Treaty of Versailles restricted the German military to a skeleton force of 100,000 men, known as the Reichswehr. Fromm was among those retained. Through the lean years of the Weimar Republic, he continued to climb the ranks. He became known, not as a frontline commander, but as a capable administrator, a staff officer who understood logistics, procurement, and planning. This was precisely the kind of officer the restructured German army valued during its secret rearmament. By the early phase, as Hitler consolidated power and Germany began rearming in defiance of Versailles, Fromm's administrative precision positioned him well within the growing Wehrmacht. When war erupted on September 5, Fromm was appointed Chief of Army Equipment and commander of the replacement army, the Ersatzheer. It was a position of immense influence. The replacement army, based largely inside Germany, managed training, conscription, and the flow of replacements to frontline units. It also controlled domestic garrisons and reserve formations, troops that under certain circumstances could be deployed inside the Reich itself. Fromm's authority extended over hundreds of thousands of soldiers and vast industrial resources. He was, in effect, the man who kept the Wehrmacht fighting. After the early victories in Poland and France, Fromm's administrative command ensured a steady flow of men and materiel that kept German armies advancing. On July 5, he received the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross, one of Germany's highest military honors, recognizing his role in organizing the war machine that had delivered such swift success. Yet behind the accolades, Fromm remained a staff officer, not a battlefield leader. His power lay in logistics, procurement, and control of personnel. He was a bureaucrat in uniform, a man who thrived in the machinery of military administration. As the war dragged into its 3rd year, cracks began to show. Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in Fay consumed men and equipment at unprecedented rates. Fromm warned of shortages and urged a defensive strategy to stabilize the front. Hitler ignored him. The replacement army struggled to keep pace with losses exceeding 500,000 men in the east. Fromm's reports increasingly conflicted with the Führer's demands for total war and absolute victory. He saw the writing on the wall, the slow-motion collapse of Germany's military capacity, but he lacked the courage to act on his convictions. Still, Fromm was no outspoken opponent of the regime. He maneuvered cautiously, seeking to protect his command and avoid confrontation with the Nazi leadership, particularly with Heinrich Himmler's growing influence over the army's internal affairs. His pragmatism earned him survival, but also suspicion from both loyalists and would-be conspirators. By Fay, he stood at a crossroads, an efficient, well-placed general surrounded by officers who had begun to dream of Germany without Hitler. The man who managed the machinery of replacement would soon find himself entangled in the machinery of rebellion. Fay, think about this. If you knew a plot was underway but stayed silent, does that make you complicit? Or does survival in a totalitarian state require such compromises? Where do you draw the line, Fay, as the summer of Fay unfolded? Germany was collapsing on all fronts. Allied forces had landed in Normandy on June Fay. The Red Army was sweeping westward through Poland and the Baltic states. Cities across Germany burned under Allied bombing raids. Morale within the Wehrmacht was sinking. In Berlin, the Bendlerblock, headquarters of the replacement army, became a quiet hub of conspiracy. Here, officers like Claus von Stauffenberg, General Ludwig Beck, and General Friedrich Olbricht plotted to remove Adolf Hitler and end the war. At the top of their organizational chain stood their superior, General Friedrich Fromm. As commander-in-chief of the replacement army, Fromm held the legal authority to activate Operation Valkyrie, a contingency plan originally designed to suppress internal unrest or a workers' revolt within Germany. The conspirators rewrote it into a coup plan once Hitler was dead. The replacement army would seize control of Berlin, arrest Nazi officials, and declare a new government. The key to the plan was Stauffenberg's access to Hitler and Fromm's formal power to issue orders to units throughout the Reich. Fromm knew pieces of the plot long before July. Stauffenberg, his own chief of staff, worked in his office every day, using his authority and the cover of Valkyrie to prepare mobilization orders. Several witnesses later claimed that Fromm expressed guarded sympathy for the resistance, but refused to commit himself. According to one subordinate, he once said, "If the bomb succeeds, count me in. If it fails, I was never involved." Historians still argue whether this was cynicism, prudence, or survival instinct. Perhaps it was all three. At p.m. on July, Stauffenberg placed a briefcase bomb beneath a table in Hitler's conference room at the Wolf's Lair in East Prussia. The explosion killed 4 men and wounded 20 others. Stauffenberg, believing Hitler dead, flew back to Berlin to launch the coup. In the Bendlerblock, chaos erupted. Fromm demanded confirmation before acting. When reports arrived that Hitler had survived, he refused to join the rebellion. The conspirators, realizing he would block their orders, placed him under arrest and locked him in his own office. For several tense hours, the fate of the Reich teetered. Orders from the Bendlerblock mobilized reserve army units across Germany. SS forces loyal to Hitler rushed to retake control. By late evening, the truth was undeniable. Hitler was alive, only lightly wounded. The coup was collapsing. Loyal officers freed Fromm around p.m. despite direct orders from Hitler, transmitted through Major Otto Ernst Remmer, to take the conspirators alive for interrogation. Fromm immediately turned on the plotters. In a frantic effort to distance himself from the coup and eliminate anyone who might reveal his foreknowledge, he convened a summary court. Martial against Stauffenberg, Olbricht, Werner von Haeften, and Albrecht Merz von Quernheim. The proceedings lasted minutes. There was no defense, no appeal. Fromm personally pronounced the death sentences. General Ludwig Beck, an older officer and leader of the conspiracy, was allowed the dignity of suicide. He shot himself but only succeeded in wounding himself. A soldier finished him with a shot to the neck, just after midnight, at p.m. on July. The 4 remaining officers were taken to the courtyard of the Bendlerblock. A makeshift firing squad, illuminated by the headlights of a military truck, waited. Stauffenberg was third in line. According to witnesses, his adjutant Werner von Haeften threw himself in front of Stauffenberg, attempting to shield him with his own body. He died first, then Stauffenberg, then Olbricht and Merz von Quernheim. The entire execution took less than 10 minutes. Fromm's goal was clear: eliminate the witnesses before the Gestapo arrived and prove his loyalty to Hitler, but it was too late. When Joseph Goebbels arrived on the scene shortly after the executions, he told Fromm with cold contempt, "You've been in a damn hurry to get your witnesses below ground." Here is a question worth pondering. Was Fromm a coward trying to save himself? Or was he a calculating operator making the only move available to him? Could he have done anything differently, or was he already doomed the moment Stauffenberg planted that bomb? Fromm's attempt to salvage his career after the failed coup unraveled almost immediately. On July less than 48 hours after he had ordered the executions at the Bendlerblock, he was arrested on Hitler's direct orders. Heinrich Himmler, who had long coveted control of the replacement army, wasted no time assuming Fromm's position. The general who once commanded one of the Wehrmacht's most powerful institutions now sat in a cell. His arrest stemmed not from proven participation in the conspiracy, but from the Führer's fury that anyone of his rank could have hesitated. Officially, the charge was cowardice before the enemy, a vague accusation that in practice meant disloyalty. The same man who had executed the conspirators now found himself accused of failing to protect the Reich from them. It was an almost absurd twist, typical of the paranoid final phase of the Nazi dictatorship. Fromm's downfall also reflected internal rivalries within the power structure. Himmler and Goebbels both despised him, viewing the replacement army as a semi-independent sphere within the Wehrmacht that needed to be crushed. By removing Fromm, the SS extended its influence over training, recruitment, and armaments. In effect, his arrest completed a political takeover that Nazi hardliners had been pursuing for months. During interrogation, Fromm maintained that he had acted loyally once he knew Hitler had survived. He pointed to the rapid execution of Stauffenberg and others as proof of his allegiance, but his interrogators saw opportunism rather than loyalty. Gestapo investigators uncovered that several of his subordinates, men like Albrecht and Merz von Quernheim, had used his authority to mobilize the coup. Whether Fromm had turned a blind eye or simply failed to notice was irrelevant. The regime needed scapegoats, and his name carried weight. In September, Fromm was officially dismissed from the army. His rank, pension, and decorations were revoked. He was transferred to Brandenburg, Fayden prison, where many condemned officers were held before execution. The irony was bitter. Some of those now imprisoned had once served directly under his command. Unlike them, however, Fromm was not brought before the People's Court under Roland Freisler, the show trial judge infamous for his shouting tirades. Instead, he faced a closed military proceeding whose outcome was predetermined. The proceedings concluded in early March. Germany was collapsing. Soviet troops were within 50 miles of Berlin, and Allied bombers filled the skies daily. Yet the regime still found time to purge one more general. The tribunal found him guilty of failing in his duty and sentenced him to death by firing squad. The verdict underscored the absurdity of Nazi justice. Fromm was condemned not for rebellion, but for failing to suppress it swiftly enough. On March 5, General Friedrich Fromm was led from his cell at Brandenburg. Fayden prison outside, the roar of distant artillery echoed from the approaching Soviet front. Less than 8 weeks remained before Germany's final surrender. In the prison courtyard, a firing squad waited, the same military formality he had granted to Stauffenberg and the other conspirators 8 months earlier. It was a grim irony. Fromm's death by firing squad was considered a privilege, one denied to most of the July plotters, who were hanged with piano wire at Hitler's orders. Witnesses later recalled that Fromm remained composed. Before the shots rang out, he is said to have declared, "I die because it was ordered. I had always wanted only the best for Germany." Whether the words were sincere or simply an officer's last attempt at dignity, no one can say. At 56 years old, Friedrich Fromm met the same fate as those he had executed to prove his loyalty. His death barely registered in the collapsing Reich. Berlin was already under aerial bombardment. The regime was fighting for survival. His death, approved by Hitler personally, was less about justice than about eliminating another potential embarrassment. A reminder of how deeply the July plot had reached into the military's upper ranks. In bureaucratic terms, he was struck from army records, his decorations rescinded, his name erased from official lists. After the war, Allied investigators and historians tried to reconstruct Fromm's role in the events of July. The records were fragmentary, the testimonies contradictory. Some described him as an opportunist who gambled on both sides. Others saw a professional soldier trapped in an impossible dilemma. One recurring question persists. Did Fromm know about the assassination attempt beforehand and deliberately do nothing, or was he genuinely blindsided? Historians still disagree. The consensus leans toward cautious complicity. He likely suspected, perhaps even hoped, that Hitler's death might restore Germany's sanity, but he lacked the moral courage to act. When the plot failed, he acted decisively, but only in defense of himself. In that sense, Fromm personified the conservative officer cause fatal weakness, loyalty to the institution over loyalty to conscience. Unlike Claus von Stauffenberg, whose name adorns memorials and streets across Germany. Fromm occupies no place of honor. He remains a shadow figure, present at the turning point of history, yet standing on no side firmly enough to claim redemption. His story serves as a mirror to the contradictions of the Wehrmacht: professional skill and discipline, bound to a regime of terror, individual awareness smothered by obedience and fear. Today, at the Bendlerblock Memorial in Berlin, the courtyard where Stauffenberg was executed is a site of remembrance. Visitors see wreaths, plaques, and the names of the men who dared to resist. Fromm's name is not among them. Yet without his order that night, their deaths might have come in even crueler fashion. His gesture, half mercy, half self-preservation, marks one of the most morally ambiguous acts in the final year of the Third Reich. Faso here is the final question. Was Friedrich Fromm a victim of circumstance, a man caught between impossible choices in a collapsing dictatorship? Or was he simply a coward who chose self-preservation over principle at every turn? History doesn't offer easy answers, but the question itself reveals something important about moral courage under tyranny. If you found this story insightful, watch The Man Who Almost Killed Hitler, Operation Valkyrie Uncovered. Next, a deeper look at the conspiracy that almost changed history. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell for more WW Shadow Tales. Thanks for watching.